If you've heard the latest buzz, the Netflix show Toxic Town is all about the devastating impacts of improperly managed hazardous substances. Today, we're diving into the true story of environmental negligence that rocked the town of Corby in the UK. But what exactly happened, and what can we learn from history to create a better future? You're about to find out. If you like our YouTube videos, make sure to check out our video subscription to access over 150 video courses. Check it out at allysafety.com. Hi, I'm Rachel from Ally Safety. I'm a workplace safety pro with an emphasis in chemical safety and hazardous materials. And today we're talking about what actually happened in the real-life town of Corby in the UK. So Corby was once a booming steel town. During World War II, its steel mill produced 1,000 miles of tubing for a crucial pipeline supplying fuel to the Allied forces. Now, this was a massive contribution for a town of just about 10,000 people. But decades later, Corby faced economic collapse when its steel mill shut down in 1980. So to revitalize the town, the Corby Borough Council launched a reclamation project that went from 1983 to 1997, aimed at redeveloping the former steel mill site. Unfortunately, the demolition and removal of industrial waste was handled with little regard for environmental precautions or safety. What this did was it actually shook up a toxic cocktail and spread contamination throughout the town. In fact, an estimated 2 million metric tons, or 2.2 million US tons, of heavily contaminated material were moved from the mill site to an old quarry, with hazardous dust spreading along the route, contaminating air, water, and soil. Note, economic revitalization plans should usually not start with widespread pollution. So what was in this toxic mix? Studies found significant contamination of heavy metals, like lead, cadmium, and arsenic, along with carcinogenic hydrocarbons, such as benzene, toluene, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, also known as PAHs. These chemicals have severe health effects, especially for developing fetuses and young children. Now, just a few examples here. Lead exposure can cause neurological damage and developmental delays, while PAHs and arsenic are known carcinogens. Cadmium is particularly dangerous to fetuses, leading to impaired brain development, congenital deformities, hormone disruption, and an increased risk of miscarriage. Sounds pretty awful, right? So the question is, did the city council know the material was contaminated? And unfortunately, the answer is yes. Evidence from the 2009 trial showed that city council was aware of toxic substances like arsenic, along with less hazardous ones like zinc, boron, and nickel. Despite this, they failed to implement environmental protections, or even to investigate how much they actually knew about the toxic waste, leading to widespread contamination. And to make matters worse, the city council was uninsured, essentially gambling with public health and losing spectacularly. The most heartbreaking part of this case is how it affected families. Between 1989 and 1999, Corby saw a significant increase in birth defects, particularly limb deformities. A total of 18 children were affected, which may not sound huge, but this is a really high rate for a town of Corby's size. And the birth defects led to a landmark court ruling in 2009. Now, in the court ruling, no single chemical was definitively identified as the cause. The High Court found that the combination of heavy metals and carcinogens played a role in the birth defects, which isn't a big surprise. So you might wonder, how did this happen, especially when environmental laws existed at the time? The UK had regulations like the Control of Pollution Act of 1974 and the Environmental Protection Act of 1990, which set waste management and pollution control standards. However, as you can tell, these laws were poorly enforced, but Corby City Council didn't comply. Now, this is a story of prioritizing cost cutting over safety, which is unfortunately very common. In the landmark High Court ruling in 2009, Corby Borough Council was found negligent in its management of toxic waste during the site's reclamation in the 1980s and the 90s. Subsequently, the court agreed to a settlement totaling about £14.6 million, or about the equivalent of 18.5 million US dollars. Now, this settlement provided compensation to affected individuals and covered legal expenses. The costs for cleaning up the pollution are not publicly known at this point. This case reminds us that safety is often about ethical responsibility and taking the time to understand the hazards while not cutting corners. Corby's council were in such a rush to revitalize, they accidentally massively polluted the town they were working so hard to save. It's ironic and tragic at the same time. It was their rush to revitalize that ended up making the town known for pollution rather than for being an economic hub. Here's what should have been done in a case like this. Identifying contaminants before demolition and disposal is essential, but unfortunately, it is not uncommon, even in the US, for this step to be skipped because people don't want to know what's there because it's expensive to deal with sometimes. It also takes more work. Hazardous waste has to be securely managed and properly disposed of. Otherwise, it creates cascading problems later on. Ongoing testing is necessary to detect contamination. You have to test air, water, and soil to make sure that people aren't being unnecessarily exposed to toxins. Informing and educating communities, in extreme cases, relocating residents to safer areas may be necessary. Workplace exposure prevention and environmental laws are really important to protecting people from exposures, and they need to be enforced. The Corby case is a tragic reminder of why chemical safety and environmental protections really matter, and also why taking the time to do things right is the right thing to do. We need elected officials to recognize this, as well as business leaders. Now, to end this video on a lighter note, 45 years later, after the steel mill closed and after the pollution case, Corby is now one of the UK's fastest growing towns and has attracted new and expanding businesses in recent years. Let's hope that this is a new start and a brighter future for residents. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what other safety or environmental disasters you'd like me to cover. As always, take care and stay safe. Hi, Rachel from Ally Safety here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the Ally Safety Toolbox Talk membership at allysafety.com. There you'll find an entire library of videos that are created to make safety entertaining. I'll see you there at allysafety.com.